Yeah. Oh, there you go. So we're now live. The stream should be on my X channel, and then you could retweet it from there.
Okay, okay.
Perfect. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Superlative Podcast, Episode 6. I'm your host, Edward Bushi. Every episode, one guest, a founder, investor, operator, or someone who has built or competed at a level most people only read about. The conversation covers their journey, what they discovered along the way, what most people never get to hear, and where they think their field is going. No edits, no post production, just one sharp conversation. Now let's get into it. So, uh, I want to say a big hello to Tochi Chukwuemeka, who's joining us today. Um, and yeah, like just to open it off, like Tochi spent 3 months routing his own salary through a friend's bank account because Nigeria's financial system required him to already have dollars before he could open a dollar account. That from that experience, he learned and built PajCash. Before we get into your story, could we get 2 sentences, Tochi, from what PajCash is, and then we'll come back to it.
Okay, thank you, Ian. It's a pleasure being on your space. In the very simplest term, what Page is basically a payment terminal for crypto. Yeah, we built it firstly as a simple off-ramp and on-ramp protocol, and we see once we collaborate with other protocols, it becomes a payment mesh, and that's what we're working at right now.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's now that we know what it is, let's actually rewind back and get to know you as an operator, right? So
Yeah.
you weren't in crypto before PajCash, right? You spent 5 years studying urban design. That's not a degree most people abandon. What happened between year 3 and year 4 that made you decide you wanted to teach yourself tech instead?
Okay. During that period, around my third year, fourth year, that's when I tried to see what's happening in the real world space with regards to my profession then. And I noticed the job opportunities were very slim, and the opportunity to actually practice is very thin down here because of a lot of government interference. You see, when a town planner allocates a piece of property for, let's say, green area, you get government interfering and converting it to what's not really intended for. So too
Mm.
much of those interference kind of sideline the profession to a very large extent. A lot of professionals, but very little practice. So I needed something I could do immediately. So I've always had interest in technology from when I was a kid. And I never really got the opportunity to practice, but when I was in school, I decided to convert my the piece I was given to do graphic design, to do card drawings into my first programming PC. Yeah. So because of that, I never got to learn card drawings at all throughout school. Yeah. So I started practicing with Java. I don't know why I made that decision. Java was like one of the most difficult languages for a beginner to start with. So I started with Java, and then got opportunity during my final year. So while I was writing my final year exam, I got my first offer to work at a local tech company where we started building a ride-hailing product. Then
Mm.
and then that was my first exposure towards tech as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So, oh, sorry. Yeah.
okay, if you really want to hear more, after then, I spent some time building the ride hailing, built a little thing around payments, and then I got opportunity to work with a foreign company in London. Sorry, not London, in New York. That was when I got
Yeah.
that was when I got exposed to UFO study, and then we did that for like 2 years, studying UFO, reporting UFO study. So I was building the iOS application for that. So
Yeah.
that kind of exposed me to what user experience is. It's one thing to build. the day-to-day product everybody use, but then introducing a very new concept to people, you have to build the fundamental technology has to be very important, has to be
Yeah.
done pretty well. Like telling someone to use a UFO technology, and if your user experience does not tailor well to a novice, you lose those kind of customers. So that experience really taught me a lot. And
Yeah.
then after my time with them, which is Enigma, I decided to try my hands on Web3, and that was what started my journey in
Yeah.
2023. Yeah. So around that period, I did Cluster, which was reward assets solution. Then it didn't work. Then I decided to do Page. Yeah, and that's where I am at the moment. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, just to rewind a step back, you talked about having you were working with a U.S. company in New York, right? Remotely from Nigeria, right? And
Yeah.
it's from the call and the discussion we had earlier, right? It's not an easy
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
to make that work, right? And I'm saying logistically speaking, so that viewers here in North America and Europe could like understand what's that actually look like, the day to day of being a remote worker in Lagos, or sorry, in Nigeria. I'm assuming you're the city that you're in.
Yeah, yeah, I'm in Lagos, Nigeria. Yeah.
Okay.
So, getting a decent remote job is a dream come true for anyone here because the exchange rate is quite nice. But the issue now is receiving it. That's what the problem is. Before uh, right now there are some simpler solutions that works. Yeah, but but as then I'm talking about 2021. Yeah, that's after the COVID era. Yeah, so receiving money requires you depositing some dollars as a proof that you're serious about creating a dollar account. So as at then, I was requested to deposit $100. Yeah. Way back, it could be even higher, and it could be even way stricter. You deposit $100, you have to collect two signatures from someone else, from two other people who have similar kind of accounts, similar domiciliary accounts with the same bank. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was very strict. Like you need to be rich to want that kind of service, and then there's the fee to continually service your account and the rest. So it took me 2 3 months. My first attempt opening that account with the first bank I tried to use. I don't want to mention their name. It didn't work.
Mm.
I was going to their bank almost like 2 3 times every week, and it kept delaying from providing this document to this document to this document. It kept delaying. Then I moved to another bank to try it, and theirs were pretty fast, but I still had to deposit $100, and then the signatories I had to provide as well. So
That
it's stressful. Yeah.
that's that's so weird. Like I remember you mentioning the $100 minimum. I mean, or rather, like that you had to have first, but the extra step where you have to have two folks who have dollar accounts in the same bank, that even
Yeah.
makes it even harder. Like you have to really like outreach to your network. And if let's say you're the first person in your generation who is able to land a remote job, it's like I can imagine it being very very difficult.
It's very difficult. Opportunity down here, to a very large extent, is dependent on network, like
Mm,
a level of trust for someone to give you access to some kind of privilege, which shouldn't be. Like everybody with who wants something should be able to get it without those kind of referrals. Like
yeah.
it should be,
I,
yeah.
and yeah, like to me, like if you have you could prove that the money's coming in, that should be enough, right?
Yeah,
But
that should be enough.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
well, yeah. So I know that's a big problem that led you to develop PajCash. But before that, right? Before PajCash, you tried to tokenize real estate and back currencies with physical infrastructure like power
Yeah.
plants, schools, farms instead of gold. That's That's crazy because in the world of crypto that I'm used to, it's all about, Bitcoin, it's all about Ethereum, it's all about these blue chip assets, acquiring them, DeFi. But you came in from a unusual angle, or rather, not typical angle. So where did that come from? And yeah, like talk us through that.
Yeah, to a very large extent, I think Web3 as a whole is defined more for Africans as compared to other regions. Something like AI, the US market has it already. The Asian, especially Chinese markets, has conquered that already. Africa can't compete anytime soon. But you see, because of the restrictions we have down here when it comes to finance, I think Africans can really innovate so much when it comes to finance. I know that's where Web3 has a lot of edge. So for us down here, we have a lot of peculiar problems. You could see a local farmer who has hectares of land but has little to no access to finance. You get, you could see people passing a lot of assets from generations, and but they're not banked yet. And
Mm,
I'm not talking about just creating a bank account. Almost everybody has a local bank account down here, yeah. But there are no financial vehicles that help them express or take advantage of a large part of their non-fungible assets. You get, I'm talking land, houses, some people hotels, and you get, and because of those kind of frictions, we keep making a lot of mistakes that's being passed from parents to kids, and then you see it really down there. So so coming from, so for someone like myself who've studied a lot of things around housing and how these things affect us on an individual level and as a community, it's only natural for me to want to study these things and see how much difference I could make. For example, like I said earlier, it's more beneficial for a farming community to build to hedge their fiat to a physical infrastructure, let's say like an irrigation system or a water system that generates value and generates income directly as compared to hedging it over gold. You
mm,
get, well, why gold appreciates a lot, and gold appreciates annually, let's say less than 20%, obviously. Like it appreciates, no, I think less than 10%. But some of these infrastructures, why they can generate revenue as high as 10, 15%, they can also provide immediate value, as which is making transaction is easy, whereby you use let's say water treatment system, which is, let's say $2 million. You could decide to mint, let's say 100K or 200K worth of stable token out of it, and allow
sure.
people to
Yeah.
hold that and trade off that. That infrastructure is already enough collateral in case there's a bank run of whatever you get. So these are things I wanted to introduce to communities. I wanted to introduce to people as, yeah. At first, I wanted to start with your personal homes. Yeah, if you have your property yourself. Down here, we usually owe property straight out. There's barely room for mortgage down here. So most times after buying a property, you go broke for a very long
Mm,
time. You are trying to recover before, let's say, maybe try and buy your next property. But if someone owns a property, let's say what, 200K, and that should easily give them access to, let's say, 20, 30K without them having to visit the bank or trying to do
mm,
anything around that. So these are problems I think once they are solved, it makes it makes business easy for people. Yeah, I don't want to withdraw money from my business, buy a property, and then go broke. You
mm,
get, I should
yeah.
still have some leverage, liquidity to continue doing my business because I own that property myself. So
Yeah.
those are things I wanted to work on, but yeah.
And it makes sense because to how do you say, back loans or assets, or currencies or stables, right, underneath real world assets, because uh, let's say a farm, for example, will eventually produce goods that could be sold. A water manufacturing plant could produce water. A power plant will produce um,
Wow.
power
And
that
then,
will be sold. And then
yeah,
even a house, right, or an apartment building, like
yeah,
there's rent that could like off could pay it back, right?
right.
Or stabilize the value of whatever of the collateral. So
Yeah,
yeah, talking about um, like the idea. One thing that you mentioned to me, like going back to how companies were trying to help the your nation, right? You talked about PayPal coming in, trying to solve the problem that you saw also, right? But
yeah,
the Nigerian people, as you described it, rejected it. That's a hard thing for a company with that much scale, right, to fail. What
yeah.
did PayPal not understand about the market when they came into Nigeria?
I don't think it's a problem of not understanding, or it's more of a decision not to understand the African
Not
problem. Yeah, I think it's a deliberate decision. They've been
wow.
around since early 2000 or so, and sending money down here has always been important. Yeah, but for some reasons, we are always blacklisted from
Hmm.
participating. Yeah, and this has nothing to do with sanctions, but them trying to, paper trying to most times, um, should I say, anti-fraud, their anti-fraud mechanism does not just work for us. You get, it's the same way building, it's just like building a system, an AI model, and it's built for only humans, and your AI models, the data does not cover animals, you get, or does not cover objects, you get. You can't really once you don't make attempts to understand this other category of objects or entities, you won't cover those things. So it's the same thing with paper. There was very little attempt to understand what the African markets wanted, how we transact. As a result, every single thing was flagged as fraudulent, and
Hmm.
yeah, and we were basically restricted from transacting with them. So in some situations, it's someone who has been who has lived in the US or lived in the UK, who now has access to paper, who most times use their own account to process transactions for a friend, just like how my friend did earlier with me. So you see people leveraging other people's paper accounts, or
Yeah.
yeah, and then
Piggybacking.
charges, paper takes its own charges. Before you know, you're left with very little funds. So most times you're losing 20%, losing 30% just because you're receiving money down here. So that problem did linger for a very long time, to the point that solutions started coming out. And this after a long period of paper holding, seizing funds of I'm talking about legitimate funds, hard funds people worked hard for, and
Yeah.
people seize these funds without providing a proper channel for communication. So people lost money, people lost confidence, and then people moved on. Basically, not just lost, people moved on from
Yeah.
hard-earned money made. And one morning, people said, "Yeah, Nigerians, we're coming to your country to provide service." We're like, "Fuck you, we don't want you."
Yeah. You might rug them again into the future, and
Exactly.
use
Funny enough,
yeah.
somebody got robbed again. Somebody got robbed and then came on Twitter. When it was announced, everybody came on Twitter, said, "No, we're not using you anymore because you," like almost everybody got hot from paper. And then
Yeah.
some people said, "Yeah, just going to try them because we don't have a lot of options." Yeah,
Mm.
because why there are options in the market, people still want more options, you get. And
Yeah.
then a couple of people tried it, and they came back complaining that the money is stuck and people is not responding to them.
And
Same situation, yeah.
And you know what it goes back to? Like it's a company not trying to understand the experience of local Nigerians, to understand that the anti-fraud measures are a little bit draconian, right? And that there's no feedback mechanism or mechanism to like dispute things. That's harsh.
It
So
is.
Yeah, I want to get to this problem, right? You said something on our call earlier, and earlier in this chat too, that stuck with me. You need to have money to receive the money. That's not a small local problem. It's a little description of how banking uh, uh, is limited for ordinary people, right? How
Yeah.
widespread is this problem across West Africa right now?
Uh, it's even in the Bible, yeah, where it says, "To whom much is, um, who has more will be given, and those with little will be taken from." Something like that. Yeah, down here, access is being bought with money to a very large extent. Yeah,
Mm,
privilege is bought with money. Yeah, so when it comes to financial privilege, it's a big problem. There are a lot of loan facilities down here, but the expensive ones are the ones being provided to those with very little access to those loans. So it hurts more. You get the more affluent you are down here, the more access you have to almost any almost any opportunity you get. And that's one of the reasons why I say Web3 is designed for the African market. You get
mm,
now with your private key, you have access to an account, a wallet, which is an account. You get it's um like I said, it's to a very large extent people opportunities exist, but it has to be bought. It's either you money directly or with some kind of reference. Somebody has to vouch for you. It's not. It's far from decentralized, and there's very little effort for by the government to make those things available to the masses. Yeah,
mm.
there's very little access. There's very little attempt at that at the moment. Yeah.
So, you talk about Web3 being the unlock, right?
Yeah.
Here in North America, the talk is mostly about decentralization, right, as the goal. And you on the other hand, like as you described earlier in the call, you keep coming back to user experience, right? Not decentralization. What do you think the field has got? Why do you think the field has got that priority like out of order?
Okay. Web3 blockchain is a technology on its own. Yeah. Adoption has to be driven in the right way. Just the way we had the computer and terminal reigned for a very long time until Apple decided to do something about it and then gave us a decent GUI. Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing
Yeah.
with telephones. Telephones were very decent with the buttons, with the QWERTY buttons, but Apple decided to do something about the full screen thing, and then now you enjoy games better. I don't know if you enjoy Call of Duty Mobile. If there was no,
I have some friends who have, and I also was there with the BlackBerry experience where you started with buttons and then saw the iPhone come in. Yeah.
so now with the iPhone introducing full screen, games are better now with the full screen thing. Now you can typically play Call of Duty Mobile, which is one of the best games enjoyed down here. You get
Mm,
that's a result of adopting technology the right way. You get buttons did everything. Buttons were decent, but there could not be with button. Imagine playing, Call of Duty Mobile, yeah.
sure. Yes, I can. Yes, I can have that in my mind. Yes.
Yeah, you can't play Call of Duty Mobile with a QWERTY keyboard. It won't work. You get,
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
You have to.
uh,
Yeah, it's a full screen experience. Yeah.
yeah, it has to be a screen experience. So this is the thing about technology exists, but the right interface has to match it. You get, I'm sure there are tons of technology out there that's been patent already, but we're still waiting for the right interface to plug into
Mhm.
those technologies so we can start enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So and that's what I'm a big believer for. Yeah.
that's
Um,
huge. Yeah.
yeah, we understand how private key works. We understand how public key is derived from private keys. We understand that if you lose those private key, you've lost your entire funds as much as your net worth if you're not careful. We understand how easy one could be compromised, and then we need to build solutions that make it easy to interact with this kind of technology without users thinking twice about it, how to protect the user, how to safeguard those experience. So, for example, what we did with Page, which we're still testing and pushing, is this:
Yeah.
we created deterministic wallet address for individuals' local bank accounts. So
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I told you about that. Yeah. So sending money to that address credits your local bank account. So someone without a domiciliary account over here who does not have $100 to pay into an account can actually send their address to someone elsewhere. It does not matter where the person is sending the money from, and their local bank
Mm.
account is going to get credited with an equivalent in naira. So these are so now you don't need to hit you don't need so now you're bypassing a lot of processes and still getting
Yeah.
the money in a very neat and KYC, like a very compliant way. All this is thanks to what Web3 could do. And now someone doing that does not need to understand what a private key is. They just know there's a long string that represents their bank accounts on the internet. And whenever they share
Yeah.
that address, they are going to get credited. You don't need to understand what cryptography is. They don't even need to understand what blockchain is. The best they need to know is the network that
Yeah.
address will work on. And they get money to their local bank account straight up. Yeah.
So like when I first um, got into like playing around and experimenting with abstracted wallets with my co-founder, right?
Yeah.
We just thought of it as you could sign in, create an account and a wallet with
Yeah.
your email, your Twitter account, right? But I
Yeah.
love how you've taken it uh, like at the other side, right? It's the receiving end. The bank account creates
Yeah.
the private sorry the public key to receive the funds and send it automatic, and you program it to send automatically to the bank account, which is actually very like holistic when you're thinking about abstracted wallets. So I really like commend you and your team for thinking
Yeah.
about that stuff.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to get to like PadCash, but like before that, like just one question, right? You have this longer term vision, right, for currencies backed by physical infrastructure rather than gold or government debt, right? You talked
Yeah.
about that earlier. A power plant in Lagos backing the currency a village uses to trade. That's not a startup pitch. What is that? It's basically you're betting long term. It's a civilization bet. Where does PajCash fit on that journey?
Okay. PajCash is supposed to give me that soft landing to understand finance properly. It's one thing to have a vision, and another thing to know what applies to actually make it work. So me driving at my end goal with cluster at first. There's some things I knew I wanted, but I wasn't understanding it at first. You get, so I somewhat moved to a simpler problem to solve, which is just moving money around. You get,
Mm,
and while doing that, I noticed in this space community we've moved from the era where products thrive on large announcements, media appearing on media. Now everything is moved to very little communities, and you have to do the hard work of growing your community yourself. So I really want to start my goal of tokenizing physical infrastructure from a simpler product that everybody uses every day. Yeah, it's easier to introduce a complex solution when you have a large audience than trying to make random audience understand the complex problems they don't necessarily believe they need. You get,
mm,
so
yeah.
it's me starting small. It's this more like a humble beginning to solving a larger problem. Yeah.
That's huge. Thinking foundationally, I was chatting with Kevin Jang yesterday from Paytree, right? And
Yeah.
opinion on Web3 is that it's a technology that needs a jumping board, right? You don't just jump into it right away. And from his perspective, stablecoins is the jumping board, right?
Yeah, true. Yes.
When someone has a stablecoin, um, they're more likely to like delve into actual crypto, right, or other financial services like DeFi or even prediction markets. All these new things that are going to be coming into the future, but you have to start with a base stable coin. So
Yeah.
it seems like you both resonate on that area. um, okay, one
Yeah.
one one thing to open it off, right? You said two sentences earlier about PajCash. Now that we know your story, what is PajCash really building right now? To expand on it a little bit more, and why does it matter now?
Okay. Right now we're focused on representing local bank accounts on chain. It's the same thing we had with putting local machines on the internet, or you could
Hmm.
say putting your home address on the inter with a longitude and latitude. Anyone who has a longitude and latitude of your address can find your home easily. You get. So we're trying to replicate that with what is already rampant, which is local bank accounts. My mom has a local bank account. My dad has. Everybody in my family has, but they can't receive money from someone in India. They can't receive money from someone in Pakistan. Yeah. Same thing with someone who is trying to crowdfund. They have to go through GoFundMe. Yeah,
Mm.
but it has to pass through some kind of centralized system. But with what we're doing, someone can use their local bank account and fundraise globally because of what we're building. So we think these local bank accounts can be represented on a global scale and can be interacted with anybody, anyone, anywhere in the world can interact with anyone's local bank account. So that's what we're trying to do. More like building more exposures for these accounts to receive and use funds you get. So we're moving from an era of forms where you have to enter the bank sorting code, the users, the account number, the bank, every detail about the bank and the account, to a system where we're using just a bunch of strings to send money to that same destination. Yeah.
You reminded me like how you can actually it seems like you're standardizing a way to find people's bank accounts through these wallets.
Exactly.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, it reminds me of the GDS system with airlines, right? They standardized a way of buying and selling tickets so that you could have things like Expedia or um,
Yeah, exactly.
Google flights.
Anybody can
Yeah,
quickly click on that without having to source from each airline.
yeah,
Yeah,
huge.
exactly.
So, just to give a sense of to the viewers, like who's your ideal user right now? Not the TAM slide version, but the specific person that you want to like help with Patch Cash that no other product could help right now.
It's going to be a young fellow who is just starting out, let's say someone in their mid 20s who wants to, I say crowd, someone who is in trouble, who wants to crowdfund, and
Mm,
then it, and then he's crowdfunding from someone in the UK who really wants to send money across immediately, and
mm,
we should be able to solve those kind of situations. So it could be a student who really needs stationaries for school. It could be a farmer who wants to collect money from his son or daughter outside in the diaspora. Those are easily my target users. People who want something done immediately without understanding anything in between. Yeah,
mm.
those are the folks I really want to serve.
That's
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that's like, actually like a benevolent like kind of approach to a problem here. So like what? in the I know you're a fairly new company too, right? But you've done it a lot, and you got a lot of traction on your side, right? Uh,
Yeah.
what does the next 12 months need to look like for PajCash as you build out the your protocol and your service?
It's going to be very intense for us. We're already feeling the heat right now. Um, we are opening our APIs to a lot of collaborations, especially locally. We've partnered with, honestly, I've lost count of how many partner integrations we've had and slash partnerships. I think there are over a dozen. So these are small businesses who want to spin off an idea, try it in the market. They're just like us, and we're providing API for direct payments. And then we're also hoping to jump on some easier adoptions. So you might be seeing us, or not might, you will be seeing us on WhatsApp soon. Yeah. So it's going to be, that's for easy integrations. And the goal is to scale across Africa in the next 12 months. We're even doing a raise at the moment to help to make that work, just in case anyone is interested in hearing. She could DM or shoot an email. Yeah, so we're doing a raise at the moment to make that work. So the plan is to stretch to as many African countries as possible, plug Africa, and make it easier to move funds within the space. So anyone who is from outside Africa wants to plug into the African ecosystem would be very easy. And the best part
Mm.
about this, what we're doing with our abstracted bank accounts address thing is we want to also integrate with a lot of Web2 solutions. For example, TikTok does not pay in Africa, I think. You don't pay in Africa. You need to open a US account and send it to TikTok for TikTok to pay you. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Or you have to
but
have an uncle or an aunt in the US with a bank account that receives your
yeah.
TikTok payments.
Yeah, oh, you need to now. There are solutions that allows you to open a US account. There are platforms that allows you to do that, and then you need to pay money. I think you need to pay like $2 monthly. A couple of fees that, and what TikTok is paying right now, I'm not sure it's so interesting at the moment, but it's a decent fee. Um, but then if a solution like that adopts our string instead of the whole banking regulations which they are going to be facing, they're going to be cutting a lot of cost and they're going to make transaction faster for their users. So these are
Mm.
adoption we are hoping to push in months' time, and we are excited about it. Honestly,
Yeah, and you know what? We'll be excited to like have you back on the podcast to like talk about your wins there, right? So
yeah,
yeah, and I'm really glad that we're connected, and we had some mutual friends that connected us. So big shout out to Joe from Twitter.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Tochi, one last question, right, to close it all off, right? You said PajCash is your entry point into finance, not the final destination. At what point does that stop being the entry point and start being the thing itself?
When problems become very interesting, they overwhelm you, and it's very difficult to define these parts because these problems are way more interesting than you think. I thought I was going to build PodCash in a couple of months and move on, but here am
Mm.
I finding the whole bank account address thing very interesting. So I don't want to I can't be too detailed about the journey, but I'm sure in months' time there are a couple of things, a couple of use cases that I'll be introducing into the market. We're in close tabs. I'll be telling you about them as we move on. Um, it's just embarrassing that I can't really tell to in details how this journey is going to be. Yeah, but
Yeah, there's a lot of
time,
ways to go for sure.
yeah, the odds are wide. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Tochi, like the journey continues, and would love to like catch up with you in the future and on a future episode. But for now, so that folks can reach out to you,
Yeah.
what's the best way that they can do that?
The easiest has to be my X. I'm mostly active on X, which is dev_Tochi. And my other socials are dev_Tochi. Yeah. You can always shoot me an email at tochi@paj.cash. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll make sure it's in the comment as well so anyone can reach out.
For sure. Yeah. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, those details will be at the bottom of this um, Twitter post of this live stream. So I just want to say a big thank you to our guest Tochi for joining us today. It's been really eye-opening with you painting a picture about how the problems exist in Nigeria and West Africa, and how you're being very creative about solving those problems in a very, it seems like a very grassroots kind of way, and it's working, right? That's the real powerful thing about it. So thank you for joining us, sharing all your insights about that, and thank you to the audience also for staying and hearing us out. This live stream will be on the Twitter space, and we're also going to be launching this copies of these live streams onto YouTube as well. So stay tuned, everybody. All right, at that, we'll end the
Yeah.
stream.
Yeah. Bye. It's a pleasure.